All right, we're going to get back into programming here. Hope you all had a nice break and a great meditation led by Brent Freeman. Welcome back to the programming. I want to kick it off really quickly. I know we heard from Dane Wicker with DBED, but I wanted to give a quick shout out to our partners, HTDC, the Hawaii Technology Development Corporation. We couldn't do what we do without them. So thank you so much. I know they're here, and we really are grateful for their support. HTDC is a state agency under DBED dedicated to supporting technology, innovation, and entrepreneurship in Hawaii. They're empowering startups, building tech infrastructure, and helping local businesses thrive through funding, mentorship, and community programs such as SBIR, HiCap, and our local accelerators and small business training programs like Blue Startups. Mahalo HTDC for your continued support. All right, let's get into the next panel here. This panel explores the full spectrum of AI from innovation to implications. AI, the good, the bad, and the hype. All right, I'll welcome up on stage our speakers, Brian Bell, Jacqueline Hall, and Chris Ye, moderated by our very own Shanoa Farnsworth.
All right, how's everybody feeling? Good. Yes, good. Okay, well, we're really fortunate to have these three amazing individuals, and I'm gonna jump right into my questions. So actually, this panel is kind of the overarching theme of our event. I don't know if you caught that, but anyway, just cluing you into that fact. So you can be thinking about it for the rest of the day and all the implications that AI has for us both locally, globally, and for the industry of technology going forward. So I'm gonna get started with Jacqueline. Jacqueline is the CEO and founder of Maven Energy. She is I'm sure, very proud graduate of cohort 16 of Blue Startups. Yes. That's not why she's on the panel, though. She's on the panel because of her awesomeness. And I'm going to ask her about the good. So, Jacqueline, what do you think AI is being used for good for in this world? And of course, you can talk about your company, but other examples as well.
Okay. So, thank you. Outside of Maven, which is a software platform that helps utilities reach decarbonization goals faster and at less cost, I'll get to that. But obviously, the first most important good is that we are detecting cancers early. We are providing education and democratizing access to information, and really leveling the playing field, not only for the broader general public, but in terms of entrepreneurship. Non-technical founders obviously have a much easier time creating prototypes, getting to market, testing the market, and managing engineering teams, for example, by leveraging different tools. But Maven, so we are replacing manual program processes at utility companies to help reach more homeowners and renters faster and put the right technologies in the right places at the best cost. So what that really means in terms of AI is we're ingesting millions of data points about building stock before we're even in the home. So understanding assessor data and permit data and making sense of what's out there. We're able to identify different neighborhoods that are better candidates for electrification, for example, and then target dollars into those regions. Then through our app, we're leveraging AI to help homeowners and renters identify all of the data points that are required for a custom energy model that can help them access the right technologies at the right prices. So for specifically, a homeowner doesn't need to know what kind of hot water heater they have to use the Maven app and access a free solar hot water heater through HGIA, for example. So we're kind of a second brain for homeowners, which is helping move the needle on decarb.
Awesome. I really love this idea of a whole category called AI for good. So I wanted to ask our other panelists if they have any examples that they've seen in what they've been seeing out there in AI for good. Anyway, Chris or Brian.
So when it comes to AI for good, the way I like to think about it is AI is just a way to substitute computing power for human brain power. And I think the example that you just gave is a great one where, a lot of human beings don't have the expertise or the time to do this kind of thing. So one of the companies that a friend of mine started is called Humanitas AI. And what they do is they work with big employers like a Walmart or something like that, where they have a lot of workers who are stressed economically and maybe one illness or one car breakdown away from some real distress. And this country actually has programs to help people, but a lot of times people don't know which programs to apply for, or if they do, it's on a government website, and maybe it's in a second language for them. And so what Humanitas does is it gets offered to all these employees, and they can access it just with text messages, so AI can meet them where they are. And if they say, I'm hungry, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to make my rent payment, the AI will then help them figure out what programs they can apply for and walk them through the process in their native language so they can do it. So that's something where you're not doing something where you're creating something from scratch, but you're able to leverage the ability to substitute computing for human brain power to connect people to the things that already existed and just make the world better and more efficient.
That's an awesome example. I know the kids in the audience were thinking AI for good. That's the AI that helps me do my homework, right? That's not what we're talking about up here. All right, Brian, what do you?
On good.
You got any examples?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on how you define good. I mean, is business good? Is economics good? AI helps us do both more efficiently and effectively. And so I think from that economic, purely business measure, it is a force for good. Debatable, but there's lots of great examples of this. Like we have a portfolio company that collects debts from people using AI, right? So rather than farming it out to the Philippines and paying people $5 an hour to call people and collect debts, the AI does that 24/7 and never has a bad day. Is that good? I don't know. Maybe good for the financial institutions that are collecting the debts more effectively, but debatable.
Yeah, I think this is a good point, right? There's a lot of gray area here, and a lot of things aren't going to be clearly in one bucket or another, right? There's going to be things that have unintended consequences, like cheating on your homework, and et cetera. No, that's not the only unintended consequence. Okay, Chris, I should have introduced you a little bit better, but you are the author of Blitzscaling. Who's read Blitzscaling out there?
Who can
Come on,
pretend
tech
that they
people.
read it?
Come on,
Pretend
tech
that you
people.
read it.
You're supposed to just raise your hand and pretend you're
Actually,
smart.
no.
Come on, let's go.
What's funnier
Notes,
is,
anything? No?
have you heard the word blitzscaling before? Raise
There
your
you go.
hand.
There you go. We're making it easy for you. Okay. And also, he is a VC with Blitzscaling Ventures. And if you were here last year, who was here last year? Yeah, you heard Chris's keynote, which was awesome. And we're so fortunate that he decided to come back. Which is
Actually, I was
amazing.
begging to be invited, and fortunately, Shanoa said yes.
Yes, we are so fortunate. All right, so we are talking a little bit about these unintended consequences. What else do you see out there, Chris, in this kind of, in your perspective on maybe some of the bad or unintended consequences out here?
Well, I mean, there's obvious bad consequences of people creating fakes and scamming and Terminators rising up to kill us all. That's probably not going to happen. But the thing that I've been talking to folks about recently is something that I think we need to look forward to and anticipate. And that's as people use AI for things like doing their homework, well, that's kind of like getting the answer key to a test. You get a good grade on the test, but did you learn anything? And so one of the things I point out to people is this has actually happened before. So during the Industrial Revolution, for the first time, we went from doing everything by hand, using our muscle power, to using steam and electricity, which is great. It frees people from this labor. But a decade or two in, people looked around and discovered, hey, wait a minute, how come people are getting out of shape? How come people are getting sick more often? It's because they no longer got physical activity from their economic activity. And so the solution was, we eventually said, oh, we're going to put education into schools. Anybody who has done PE, I didn't like it that much, but it's probably a good thing that they made us do it. That's when the YMCA was formed. That's when all these things happened. So one of the bad effects of AI becoming more and more prevalent is that if you do not take the time to actually get cognitive exercise, you are going to get flabby, out of shape, your brain is going to atrophy. And so this is one big challenge
The
we're
brain
going to
is
face.
going to atrophy. Yeah. I'm just warning all the kids here again that their brain's going to atrophy. Chris, sorry.
No, but by the way, kids, you should continue to use AI to do your homework, but you should ask AI why the answers are correct. As long as you're getting the learning out of the process, then it's okay. Unless your teachers have forbidden, of course.
I think the teachers have given up by now. Anyone else, have you seen examples or do you have warnings for us about how AI might be used for bad?
Depends on how we define bad.
Oh my goodness.
I'm shocked.
I'll be the definitional guy on the panel. I think Chris mentioned a few, right? The deepfakes, that's definitely coming. The spoofing, the phishing attacks, the cybercrime, things like that. But at kind of this is a venture capital conference, right? So, one thing that is happening is creative destruction in our economy, right? And what I mean by that is AI is making it easier to create copycat clones of everything else, right? So you can have some kids drop out. I backed some kids out of MIT that dropped out, and they're just destroying an industry with an AI startup. And these industries employed thousands and thousands of people, and so that's going to be some unintended consequences and bad, kind of the other edge of AI.
Sure. So an obvious one, I think, is the energy consumption for data processing in data centers, and the water that it takes to cool those data centers. So it's a very resource-intensive industry. I do have hope, though, because outside of chatbots, for example, which can't be managed so well, the data centers themselves, and specifically language model training, can be done during off-peak times. So if we're really conscious about how we use data centers and when processing is done, these massive facilities can actually act as batteries and help mitigate some of the peak demand, for example, offset carbon emissions during non-solar and wind generating times. So it's bad right now, but with a little work and conscientiousness, we can make it really work, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that the CPU usage is coming down, right? I mean, anyone heard this hopeful thought that this isn't going to be the case?
Well, yeah. So, I mean, that's maybe a light at the end of the tunnel here on energy is, AI is getting about a half order of magnitude more efficient every year, algorithmically. But you're also getting a half order of magnitude more compute thrown at AI every year. And so that combines for about a 10x overall increase in the use of and effectiveness of AI. And so you see this, China's bringing on something like 7 terawatts of energy in the next 5 or 10 years. We're bringing on 3. So there's going to be a huge strain on our natural resources and energy. And there's also this economic phenomenon where when things get cheaper, there's more demanded, right? Like you would imagine in Moore's law, hey, things are getting cheaper, there's going to be less, demand for all these bits and bytes. But it's that Jevons paradox in economics where as AI gets cheaper and infiltrates everything, the demand's going to go way up. So more energy, more resources.
I guess the good news would be for all you crypto folks out there, you're out of the hot seat on the energy bad guy of the moment. Now it's AI. All right, so next, let's talk about the hype. And Brian, I'm going to go to you first. And Brian Bell just came quick refresher on his backgrounds with Team Ignite, and he invests in a lot of early stage companies, like a lot. Like how much, Brian? Give us.
We have about 200 portfolio companies.
Right, so a lot. So he's seeing a lot of companies every day. In fact, he right before we started the panel, he looked to Chris and said, "How many companies did you invest in today?" And we're like, "Today? None." So he was like, "I did one this morning." Huh? Such a prolific investor. So tell us about this hype cycle. Where are we in this hype cycle? Are we peak, coming down, going
Yeah.
up? What's happening?
Well, I think, if anybody's familiar with singularity thinking, we're heading towards the singularity in the next, 5 to 20 years. And if you look at the history of civilization, we talked about the Industrial Revolution. You could argue the Agricultural Revolution was like the major thing before that. That was 10,000 years ago. So every revolution's happening faster and faster. You have the computer revolution, information revolution. You have the internet, mobile, cloud. So all these things are happening faster and faster. AI, I think, is actually underhyped. It's getting 10x better every year. We're not familiar with that. We're not really good at thinking about orders of magnitude every year in improvements. We kind of got used to exponential thinking in the last, 50, 60 years with Moore's Law. So I think it's probably underhyped.
Yeah, I will say, of all the hype cycles I've been through, and I have got a lot of wrinkles to prove of how many hype cycles I've been through, starting with .com boom, this is the most real. This is like, wow, things are really changing and very quickly in a way that is very impactful. So it is definitely not the same. But I guess my question, more specifically for the founders in the audience, how should you be treating your AI component of your business? Because everybody's going to have one now, right? It was like back in the day, we saying, what was your China strategy? You have to have one. Oh, you don't? Oh, you better have one. Now it's, what is your AI strategy, right? You don't? You better have one. But how much of that do they include in their deck, in their pitch right now? Are they AI companies? Are they just a company that has AI? Are they not saying AI anymore because it's not cool? Like, we need to know where we're at with that.
Want me to answer that? Okay, so it depends on where in the stack you are. So you got to know where you're at in the stack. Are you a foundational model company? Yeah, you're probably an AI company. Are you building networking? Yeah, you're probably still an AI company. We have a company called Thunder Compute that's trying to virtualize GPUs. Pretty exciting, kind of what VMware did with servers 20 years ago. Very exciting company. If it works, I don't know if it works. It's a venture scale bet. If it works, it's going to be huge, like VMware. You could be at the middle layer. Now, that's probably still AI as well, right? You're building orchestration for agents, observability, things like that. Application layer is where it kind of gets tricky, right? Are you just a wrapper? Not like, busting rhymes, but like a wrapper on top of ChatGPT? Then you're probably not an AI company. You're probably just an application kind of SaaS company. But what's interesting is, I didn't get a chance to say this in the hype question, but capital is eating labor. And so if anybody knows economics, that's going to throw all the equations into a funky, weird place. Because historically, you had to have labor to actually go build things, right? That's why people raise money, so they could go basically hire people to build software and distribute it and sell it. But now you don't have to do that. You could just spin up compute. And so it kind of depends on where you're at in the stack.
Yeah, somebody was asking me this the other day with all this AI, like, what are we actually going to be doing in the future? I'm like, it's hanging out and eating fruit and right?
Doing meditations with Brent.
Right, we're just gonna be meditating and hanging.
Once
and
again, Hawaii leads the way.
the robots are just gonna serve us. I'm thinking it's gonna be all good, but that's just me. Any other comments on the hype cycle here? Jacqueline or Chris?
So I'll say this about the hype cycle. I'm going to agree with Brian because he's a brilliant guy, and I often agree with everything he says. But what I want to add to that is Brian just gave you the case for how AI is getting an order of magnitude better every year when you consider the energy intensity and cost and the performance. But what I would say even further is, even if AI stopped right now advancing, even if we were just stuck where we were from now until the end of time, we would still be getting massive productivity gains over the next decade plus, because we barely even adopted it. Yesterday, we had a roundtable where we were talking about AI, and this is a great example. I won't out him unless he raises his hand and tells me he wants me to, but there was an entrepreneur in the audience who said, oh, I was trying to build something, and I hired an offshore development team for $4,000, and it really wasn't any good. And I tried again a while later, hired another one for $7,000, and that didn't really work. And then recently, I spent $20 on an AI tool subscription, and I worked on it for a week, and I gave up with a better solution. Yes, Cricket, he is outing himself.
There he is.
But that's a great example, right? The fact that we can do that now. I have another friend who runs a company, and he wanted to do some software development, so he literally hired a team of 10 people in the Philippines who are MBA students who had never coded before, gave them all AI accounts, and now he's turned them into coders. And this is a crazy world we live in, but that's the power of adoption. So if you are a business person or an entrepreneur or anybody, if you are better at adopting these tools and increasing your productivity, again, I think that, Brian, you make a great point about, arguably, is this good, is this bad? I don't know, but I do know that the people who are better at adopting are going to do better than the people who are worse at adopting.
Yes, true story. My husband just built an app, and it's pretty good. He's not a tech guy, by the way, at all. He's in medical sales. I'm like, what do you, I have this idea for an app. And I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. You know, and I look at it, I'm like, it's pretty good.
Can he apply to Blue Startups?
Seriously, we were talking about that. I'm like, I think you're conflicted out. But Jacqueline, any comments on the hype cycle from your perspective?
No, I agree with Chris. It's amazing how lean you can run as a startup now. Essentially, all of our developers have a junior developer working with them through Cursor, which is incredible and great for burn rate. But I'll just say, in terms of pitching, one of our investors told us to swap the word AI with magic or computers in our pitch. Yeah, I wonder who that was.
I know that person. He's sitting right here.
And it really was eye-opening. So we dropped it completely from our pitch now. And we're just assuming, of course, you're using AI internally, externally. And so we've dropped it thanks to Cliff.
Thanks, Cliff. That's really interesting. So my next question really is the question that I have that I need an answer for, which is, what is investable in the AI space right now? I think with this rapid development cycle, with these kind of shifting sands, certainly from my perspective, I've seen like things that we looked at a year ago that looked really cool and novel today are like, yeah, whatever, everybody can do that. My husband can do it. So it's really not that, you're hard to get that competitive advantage that's going to be sustainable over time. So I really want to hear from our investors here. What are you investing in? What are you looking for? What is investable in AI?
Yeah, I'll start. So back to the layers of the stack where you're at in the cycle. And so you think about the history of technology and the cycles of rolling it out. You kind of need to understand where you're at, right? So if, back in the internet, if you're investing in .com websites in the late 90s, you lost your shirt, right? And so I think you have to think about, okay, so the foundational model layer is kind of set. That's the hardware infrastructure layer. Hundreds of billions of dollars being poured into that. Do not invest in that area. You will lose your shirt.
You don't think we should be competing with OpenAI?
Probably not.
Great idea.
Or Google, or
Give it a shot.
Anthropic. Now, the networking layer is starting to heat up and become pretty competitive. That's the connectivity, that's the virtualization that I talked about. Right now, I think the best area is middleware. Observability platforms. We have a platform called Bland AI. They just raised a big Series B at a $400 million valuation. It's an orchestration platform for voice AI agents to go deploy those. So when capital needs labor, they build on Bland, right? So that's a really good investment for us, growing super fast. And now, when you talk about the application layer, now you have to be really careful, right? Is it a consumer app? Is it something a medical sales guy built? Probably not very defensible, right? If somebody without technical capabilities can just talk to Cursor or Lovable or another mobile company of ours, A0Dev, where you just talk to it and it builds a mobile app for you. Those mobile apps are just going to fill every nook and cranny, and it's not defensible. So what I look for when I invest in an application layer is how is it defensible? Do you have a moat? Do you really understand the problem? And then is it sticky? And so what's really cool is that Mark Andreessen said that software is eating the world, AI is eating the software, but now AI is eating labor, right? And so you're actually going out there, and these agency businesses are becoming SaaS businesses. Like they behave like SaaS, they have high margins, and they're replacing labor and filling every nook and cranny of every possible kind of business model.
And so what I'll add to that, and again, let me warn you in advance that, of course, my statements are going to be self-serving. But what I'll add to that is that, this has always been the case. So I remember when YouTube came out, and a very famous guy, Jason Calacanis, said, I could build that in a weekend. And the response to that is, well, you didn't. But also, there are things that go beyond just building the product. And that gets to, are you actually building the kind of business where there might be, say, in the case of YouTube, strong network effects? Are you creating a community, as we heard earlier from Katie, talking about the different companies that she's been involved with? So I caution everyone, technology has never been enough. In fact, my co-author, Reid Hoffman, is the founder of LinkedIn. Recently, I think he was using Replit, although I'm not entirely certain. He literally just said, or maybe he was just using ChatGPT, he literally just said, make LinkedIn for me. And the AI agent, he said, actually did a pretty good job of creating like a version of LinkedIn that you could run. Now, if you can make LinkedIn with a 5-word prompt, where does the value of LinkedIn come from? Well, it comes from the fact that it's built this incredible network effect and has established itself in a very sticky way. So I think as a founder, the fact is, if your husband's app is able to find some way to generate this kind of lock-in, pretty soon you're going to be the one asking him to finance blue startups.
Yes, let's go. I'm happy for that. All right. And Jacqueline, to you, like from a founder perspective, how can you maintain a competitive advantage in this space with things changing so quickly?
Well, I can talk about how we're doing it. We're focused on the business model. So solving a problem that is well known, very documented, very expensive for our clients at much less cost. And for us, it's more about seeing the landscape and bringing all the parts together in a way that adds infinite more value. So I think it all comes down to knowing your customers, the market, and what problem you're solving more than the tools for us anyway.
All right, so kind of comes back to the basics, right? And what we say at Blue Startups is we invest in 5 things: the team, product and market, right? So it's really about the team and what kind of advantage they can bring to the party. So any final last words on AI, the good, the bad, the hype?
I want to add something for the members of the audience, because I know that there's some of you who, like me, are old. And so I want to ask, how many people remember the movie Armageddon, where there's an asteroid bearing down on Earth? Okay.
All right, that wasn't even that long ago, Chris. Come on.
It was like 2000 or something, right? That's 25 years.
Was it?
25 years ago.
Oh, shit.
So in the movie Armageddon, the plot is there's a giant asteroid headed towards Earth. And Bruce Willis is this oil driller guy. And what they do is they go to him and say, you need to train our astronauts to become oil drillers. And he says, you guys can't possibly do that. You have to train my oil drillers to become astronauts. Now, in the DVD commentary, Ben Affleck, who was obviously very drunk during this time, talks about how he went to director Michael Bay and said, listen, you got a bunch of guys who barely have a grade school education, some of them are criminals, and you're telling me it's easier to train them to be astronauts than to train astronauts who have advanced degrees and are the smartest people in the world how to be oil drillers. And Michael Bay said, shut the F up, Affleck. But the point of this is, for those of you out there who are in business, it turns out that AI is incredibly available. You don't need to be a computer scientist to use AI. You get to use it better if you're a computer scientist, but you don't need it to use AI. And in fact, you are all the oil drillers out there because you understand the business problems, like the business problem that Jacqueline is solving. And guess what? OpenAI does not have a bunch of people on staff who understand your business problem. They got a bunch of data scientists, and they're going to make a lot of money by building out the horizontal. But by solving real problems, either for yourself or someone else, you can be those oil drillers and make plenty of money.
Awesome. Yes, I love it. I think we will end there unless anybody has anything else. But that was such a great analogy. This is why he gets paid the big bucks, right, Chris? All
Let me
right.
emphasize, I did not get paid anything to come here. I come here out of love for East meets West.
That's a joke between us because he didn't get paid anything, and I couldn't even pay for anything this time. Anyway, long story. Okay, thank you to our panelists, Brian, Jacqueline, and Chris. Big round of applause. Yay! All right, thanks, guys.